Welcome to Long Brothers Reviews, the show where sibling rivalry meets the cinema, as two brothers rate and debate movies past, present, and coming soon. That's my brother Todd.
And that's my brother Mike, and this week's film is Ant-Man, starring Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, and Evangeline Lilly, directed by Peyton Reed.
This week's order was decided by sheer fate. So Todd, you're up first.
When we reviewed Avengers Age of Ultron, one of my knocks on the film was that you had to have seen nearly all the films in the Marvel Universe in order to keep up with all the references. But in Ant-Man, we get a film that can almost stand independent of all the other films. While there are some references, they are so rudimentary that even the most casual of fans doesn't feel left out of the loop. And despite how silly it seems to give such a lesser-known superhero his own film, the movie itself is quite entertaining, owing primarily to the casting. Paul Rudd's character is likable, a down-to-earth guy who realizes there's something absurd about the whole situation, and he doesn't have the arrogance or self-righteousness of some of the other superheroes we've seen. This is a movie his fans will like, even if they aren't fans of comic book movies. There's really nothing out of the ordinary about the story, but the special effects and the action scenes are well done, and it's an enjoyable couple of hours. Even if superhero movies and comic movies aren't your thing, this one's worth your while, so I say see it.
And I second all of that. Ant-Man is not just a good time at the movies, it's one of the best times at the movies so far this year. In fact, I rank it as the third best thing I've seen, just behind Mad Max at number 2, and the best picture so far this year, Love and Mercy, which, if you haven't seen it, Todd, you really should see this, and we ought to be able to review for all of you, by the way. It's just phenomenal. The special effects in this picture are unusual because we're seeing small things treated like big things using the technology that's usually applied to car crashes and everything else. We haven't seen this kind of stuff before. And then once in a while the camera pulls back and you realize that some bit of full-on destruction is actually nothing more than a dust-up about the size of the smokestack on Thomas the Tank Engine. A lot of funny reveals like that. I agree with you, too, that Paul Rudd is the man here. He has that odd thing he does in nearly every picture from 40-year-old virgin on. He's the likable screw-up who comes through when it counts. He's your buddy who's also fun and a goofball. So, yes, I'm absolutely with you. No daylight between us. See Ant-Man.
Now we're going to introduce a new feature that we're calling Quick Takes, where we make some quick points about the film and see what the other person thinks. Quick take number 1. There's a subtle reference to an old Saturday Night Live sketch in this, which it didn't click with me when I first saw it, but it dawned on me a few minutes later, and it was really nice to see that put in there. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I don't. What are you talking about?
There is a scene where he first puts on the suit, and Michael Douglas is giving him instructions, and he's running around, and he goes out a window, and he lands on top of a car, and you hear a little bang as he hits the roof of the car, and the driver of that car was Garrett Morris from Saturday Night Live.
Right.
There's an old Saturday Night Live skit called Superhero Cocktail Party, and you can find it on YouTube. Saturday Night Live Superhero Party sketch, I think you can find it. And in that sketch, Garrett Morris plays Ant-Man, and all the other superheroes make fun of him because his special superpower is human strength, even though he shrinks down to the size of an ant. So that was a neat little reference that I saw in there. I thought it was kind of neat to have that in there. Quick take number 2. I don't think this film would have worked without Paul Rudd. I think going with someone who is more comfortable as a comic actor, at the very least someone who's not your typical superhero type, was a really smart choice here. If they had gone with someone in the tradition of other superhero films and other Avenger and Marvel films, I think this franchise, it would have almost turned this film into a parody of the franchise.
I think what Paul Rudd brings is this everyman quality of sort of the next generation. Tom Hanks, we liked in those early pictures because he was the guy, as they say, that men want to be like and women want to be with. And now you have Paul Rudd, who's just this cool, funky, kind of laid-back goofball guy that everybody likes. And that's why this works. He doesn't seem to care too much about anything, but when it comes down to it, he stands up for it and gets it done.
Quick take number 3. Apparently Paul Rudd and Adam McKay did some work on the script on this thing, punching it up a little bit, and even consulted with some of the other actors on ways that their characters could be improved. And I think that was a really smart move. I think that really shines through in this film, and I think it's what made it such a better film than it could have been. And I hope that as this franchise continues, and obviously they've already, if you stayed through for both of the credit scenes in Ant-Man and you saw that Ant-Man will return, I certainly hope that when these other Avengers and Marvel movies come out, they kind of consult a little bit with Paul Rudd and Adam McKay and say, hey, how can we punch this up a little bit?
The idea of making these movies even funnier, in the sense that Ant-Man is funny, is an excellent idea, because we've reached a level of excellence with these comic book movies. I'm not a big fan of them. I like serious pictures too, but I'll go see them, but I'm ready for something a little more, I don't know, I guess I'm bored with them is what I'm saying, which hurts a little to say because they are so difficult and complex to make. But the kind of humor that I saw in Ant-Man was the kind of humor I'd like to see more of, because there was not the sort of, we know how it's going to come out, the I don't want to say smug, but there's a little bit of inevitability to those other pictures, and this one didn't feel that way. Whether you like the movies about superheroes, the comic book movies, or not, they are technical and storytelling marvels. When I was a kid, the first big Superman picture came out with Christopher Reeve, and the tagline in the marketing was, "You will believe a man can fly." And a lot of the marketing, a lot of the stories in magazines were about the different ways they made it look like he could fly. Now, if you've seen the picture, even in the day, it didn't look like he was flying. Sometimes they used model planes dressed up like Superman, and they would fly him through the air with a little stick. And other things, they used some green screen stuff. It worked very poorly, but it was a big, big thing that it's supposed to look like a man can fly. And now we have whole cities going up in flames, in smoke, you can't look at this and not think it's real. And the achievement in these pictures is undeniable. And I'm excited for what that makes possible. But it still comes back to story. And Ant-Man makes up it with story.
Right, and that goes back to Jurassic World, which is a movie we tried to review. We went so far as to shoot a review, then we had a technical problem and we could not get that review posted. But that's the same thing, the same point there. When Jurassic Park came out, the big thing was you're going to see people interacting with dinosaurs, and it's not going to be like, where they're moving like this. You're going to see friggin' dinosaurs. And that was great, and that drew people in. And then when you had Jurassic World, it's kind of like they went back to, well, let's just try to put a bunch of dinosaurs on the screen again. Well, by now we're used to that. We've seen stuff like that. And the story in Jurassic World was awful. It was just dreadful and was just a hideous piece of garbage of a movie. I didn't like it, in case you didn't figure that out. So it's kind of the same thing. You've still got to have a story.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and like us on Facebook to ask us questions about your favorite films.
So until next time, that's my brother Mike.
And that's my brother Todd saying, Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.